Hey there, Greg Ragland again for another training video. In this video, I am going to present ways that you can leverage your vocabulary to become better at learning, thinking, and communicating. And with that said, I'd like to take a look at three of the foremost leaders and renowned success coaches in the world: Brian Tracy, Tim Ferriss, and Tony Robbins. Incidentally, Brian Tracy has endorsed Vocabulary Zone. Brian is a huge proponent of learning how to communicate with a higher level vocabulary in order to achieve greater success in your career. Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins have not endorsed Vocabulary Zone, but I have not met Tim or Tony yet. So I hope to, and after I do, I believe they will also endorse Vocabulary Zone, but I digress. The reason I bring these three gentlemen up is because they both share a similar success strategy and technique. And it's pretty simple, but profound in that what they espouse is, if you want to be successful, then find someone who has reached the pinnacle of success in your field of work and copy what they did. Simple idea, right? Take a look at what someone who's achieved the ultimate success in your industry, and then reverse engineer everything that they did to get to that level of success and try to copy them as much as possible. In line with this, the Harvard University Human Engineering Lab conducted a landmark study of successful people. The idea was very similar to this success strategy: is try to identify the common traits and characteristics and skills of successful people so that others can copy what they did and hopefully achieve the same level of success. So what they did is scientists evaluated thousands of successful people from all fields, industries, and disciplines in order to uncover and identify the traits that successful people share. And what they discovered was very interesting. There was only one common trait that was consistent with successful people. It wasn't their upbringing or education or some other demographic characteristic. The only one common trait that was consistent with successful people was that they had all acquired a large vocabulary. And so Johnson O'Connor, who was the president of the Human Engineering Lab at the time, rhetorically asked the question, why do large vocabularies characterize executives and outstanding men and women? The final answer seems to be that words are the instruments by means of which men and women grasp the thoughts of others, in which they do much of their own thinking. Words are the tools of thought. Now, words are the tools of thought is a very poignant and profound observation. It was also quite prophetic because Mr. O'Connor stated this before neuroscientists even knew the exact impact that words had on the brain in helping the brain to think and ideate and create and problem solve. I'll be talking about that here more in a second, but I want to kind of take a look at this concept of words are the tools of thought, because I think it's a very important realization, and the reason why vocabulary training could have a profound impact on your career in three transformational areas around learning, thinking, and communicating. I'm going to dive into each one of these. So starting with learning, if you've read any of Warren Buffett's books or interviews or articles, you know he is a big proponent of reading and continuous learning. In fact, I believe the quotes, "leaders are readers and earners are learners," have been ascribed to Mr. Buffett. And when it comes to vocabulary, reading comprehension is essentially vocabulary comprehension. I think that's kind of an intuitive concept, right? The more words you know and understand, the easier it is for you to read and comprehend text. And so it's no surprise that for well over a century, there have been scientific studies that have found a direct correlation between the size of a person's vocabulary and their reading comprehension. So what I have found and learned is that for many people, their limited vocabulary is the biggest hindrance to reading more. And to dive into this a little further, I'll tell a story of a gentleman I met back in early 2000s, right after I had launched Executive Vocabulary. I was living in La Jolla, California, and I met this young man who had just graduated from school, and he decided to become a grade school teacher. Now, he wasn't planning to be a career teacher. He just wanted to teach for a couple years before going into business. And when I told him about the vocabulary program I developed, he was very intrigued. And he said, that's interesting because I've learned as, you know, for the year that I've been a teacher, that very few kids actually have learning disabilities. Because what I found is that they have issues with vocabulary. And what I mean is, if a kid's struggling learning a new subject, I'll look at the page that the student is reading and I'll point to a word or two on the page. And usually if the child was having a difficulty learning a subject, it usually was because the child didn't understand one or two words on a page. And just by not understanding one or two words on a page, it inhibited the child from learning that subject matter. And so what this young man decided to do was require his students to look up every word they didn't fully understand. And he would constantly quiz them. Tell me what this word means. They didn't know, they'd have to look it up. And so as you can imagine, all of his students excelled in school. And I imagine, fast forward to today, most of them are very successful because of this vocabulary training and technique that he instilled and impressed upon them at an early age. And I wish all teachers would do this, because I feel like there's a huge deficit in terms of vocabulary development in our education system. And I have profound respect for teachers, so I'm not trying to make any kind of political claims here or anything like that. But the moral of the story is that when you improve your vocabulary, reading becomes easier and more enjoyable. And then as you read more, you learn more words and further build and augment your vocabulary, making reading even easier and more enjoyable. And this creates a virtuous cycle where you improve your vocabulary and read more, improve your vocabulary and read more, improve your vocabulary and read more, and so on and so forth. And so with this idea, I'd like you to start looking at words and vocabulary as a foundation of your personal knowledge bank. As you continue to learn more words, you increase the size of your knowledge bank and the foundation of your ability to learn new information and material. So in summary of Transformation 1, learning, by virtue of improving your vocabulary, you will become a better reader, listener, student, and learner. You'll assimilate information quicker and acquire more knowledge as well. And you'll increase the breadth and depth of your personal knowledge bank, which is the foundation of all learning. And then the next transformation, which is thinking. The second transformational benefit of thinking is really increased intelligence. And when you improve your vocabulary, you will increase your intelligence and your ability to think more clearly, vividly, analytically, critically, and creatively. Believe it or not, you'll become more creative as you build and expand your vocabulary. And this all comes back to that original observation and concept by Dr. Johnson O'Connor, and that is, words are the tools of thought. So similar to vocabulary and reading comprehension, there have been numerous studies that have found a direct correlation between the size of a person's vocabulary and their intelligence and IQ score. And regardless of whether or not you believe an IQ test is a valid measurement of intelligence, the neuroscience is conclusive. The more words you learn, the faster your brain can process information and the better you think. I dive deep into the neuroscience behind this in a blog article on our site titled "Why Improving Your Vocabulary Instantly Makes You Smarter." And for the purposes of this presentation, I'll just focus on one aspect of that neuroscience, and it has to do with your working memory. See, your working memory is a small part of your brain, the front of your brain, where you process information, solve problems, and ideate. And the more words you know and learn, the easier it is for your working memory to chunk information and form connections in your brain that lead to ideas, innovations, solutions to problems, and those brilliant epiphanies and eureka moments that we're all aspiring to have in our lives. And so improving your vocabulary will have a profound impact on your intelligence. And I strongly encourage you to read that article on exactly how it does this and how it affects your working memory and your ability to think and problem solve. It's really quite amazing. So transformation 2, by virtue of improving your vocabulary, you will find that your thinking is more fluid and your thoughts are more lucid. You'll become more analytical and critical in your thinking, and you'll become better at problem solving. And you'll be more creative and innovative in all of your brainstorming and ideating. All right, communication. Finding a way to help people improve their communication skills was the primary impetus behind us developing the vocabulary zone system. And so the bottom line is, no matter how good an idea is, if it's not articulated in a compelling and coherent way, it will fall on deaf ears. And that's why we've created Vocabulary Zone. We know that you have a voice. We know that you have a story to tell. We know that you have ideas that you want to share with the world. And so the best way to do that is to help you improve your communication skills and your ability to articulate your ideas in a compelling way. And so let's kind of take a look at two different scenarios. First, I'll ask you this question. Have you ever had one of those moments when you knew what you wanted to say, but because you were nervous and eager to impress, the words came out clunky and fell flat? You probably uttered a few too many ums and let your thoughts tail off without finishing your sentences strongly. And in the worst case scenario, you had that proverbial deer in the headlight look on your face as you were stammering, trying to figure out the right word to complete your sentence and to get that train of thought. And it's a horrible feeling, and it's one of those situations that you want to avoid at all costs, and that's why people fear and dread, any form of public speaking so much, is because nobody wants to feel dumb or unintelligent and inarticulate or incoherent. It's embarrassing, and it's happened to everyone, including me. And so I work very diligently to make sure it never happens. So conversely, I'm sure you can recall times where you were in the zone and your words flowed perfectly. Now, wouldn't it be great to be able to summon the zone at will, to be able to communicate effectively and to get in that flow? Well, in order to get into this vocabulary zone, it's imperative that you improve your active vocabulary. And so, I think I'm asking this rhetorically because I believe you already know the answer, but do you know the difference between passive and active vocabulary? For the sake of this presentation, I'll just go ahead and quickly review. Passive vocabulary are the words you know and understand when you read or hear them, while active vocabulary are the words you actively use in your written and spoken communication. Now, vocabulary zone was designed to move words from your passive vocabulary into your active vocabulary. And the reason we do this, and the reason we focus on words that are in most people's passive vocabulary, is because with over 150,000 words in the English language, we could teach you all kinds of words that most people have never heard before. But how would that benefit you? I mean, it certainly would not help your communication skills, and you can't communicate with someone if you're using words that they don't even understand. So that would be counterproductive. So what we do is we focus on teaching you words that are in most people's passive vocabulary. So 99% of people understand these words, but only 1% of the people out there use them. So only 1% of the executives, leaders, and successful people actively use these words. So our training is very unique. We're the only vocabulary program and training system that focuses in on these elite 1% words that most people know but don't actively use. And when you use these 1% words, these 1%er words, you'll make a positive impression on your audience. Either consciously or subconsciously, they will admire you for being able to use a word that they understand but don't know well enough to use themselves. So transformation through communicating. By virtue of improving your vocabulary, you will improve all aspects of your communication. You'll be more persuasive and compelling. You'll command more respect and attention from your audiences. And you'll impress people both consciously and subconsciously, which will enable you to stand out from your peers and competition, which will allow you to be more successful. And as you recall, that's the whole reason why I'm giving this presentation, is to help you understand how you can achieve pinnacle success in your career and your field of work as quickly as possible. So in summary, improving your vocabulary will have a transformational effect on your career success as you become a better learner, thinker, and communicator. So I hope you felt this presentation was beneficial, and I look forward to sending you additional training presentations and emails here in the near future. Take care.